Subscribe to Keep It Terrifying for creepy tales, horror, and nightmares you won't forget. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and keep it terrifying.
Lena's smile widened, but there was no warmth in it. Because you've been living in the perfect illusion, Michigan. You've been running away from the world, from reality. The virus, it's here to wake you up. It's here to make you face the consequences of your choices. And soon, you'll understand, everyone will understand, that this world, the one you've been hiding in, was never real. It was just a distraction, a cage. A cage. The word echoed in her mind. That was what her life had been. A cage of luxury and excess, a life spent running away from everything that really mattered. She had drowned herself in gambling, in fleeting pleasures, in the illusion of control. And now, here she was, trapped inside a nightmare she had created. The others. Suddenly, the floor beneath her shifted, the concrete groaning as if it, too, were alive. The walls seemed to close in on her, the light dimming and flickering. Lena stepped aside, and Michigan saw what lay beyond him. There were others. Figures standing in the shadows, their faces obscured, but their presence unmistakable. They were silent, still, as though waiting for something to happen. "They're like you," Lena explained, his voice filled with an odd reverence. "Like all of us now. The virus has already taken hold of their minds. They understand." Michigan's heart skipped a beat. "Who are they? What are they?" Lena's eyes gleamed with something close to satisfaction. "They're the first. The pioneers. The ones who embraced the change, who stopped resisting. It's only a matter of time before the rest of the world follows. And when it does, well, you'll see. The virus isn't just about corruption. It's about awakening. Transformation." The figures in the shadows stepped forward, each one moving with an unsettling fluidity. As they emerged into the dim light, Michigan could see them more clearly, pale, gaunt, their eyes wide and unblinking. But what struck her most was the emptiness in their faces. It was as if they were shells, hollowed out from the inside, their expressions vacant and distant. These were the people who had let go, who had stopped fighting, who had embraced the virus's call. "You're going to be just like them," Lena said, his voice soft but chilling. "You'll see it in their eyes. You'll feel it when you let go of everything. And then, you'll finally understand. The awakening." Michigan could feel the virus inside her, crawling beneath her skin. It was in her mind, in her veins, spreading through her thoughts like a slow-burning fire. It wanted her to let go, to stop resisting. It wanted her to fall into the same hollow void the others had. But somewhere, buried beneath the suffocating weight of the virus, Michigan felt something stir. A flicker of resistance. A small, desperate part of her that still wanted to fight. "I can't become like them," she thought. "I won't. Not like this." Her heart pounded harder. The pressure was unbearable now, her body trembling violently. It felt like she was being torn apart from the inside. But she refused to give in. "No," she whispered, her voice breaking through the chaos in her mind. "I won't. I won't be like you." Lena tilted his head, his expression unreadable. "It's not about choice, Michigan. It's about understanding. You're already changing. You're already a part of this. You can't fight it forever." Michigan's body was shaking now, her hands clenched into fists. "I will fight," she snarled, her voice filled with a newfound strength. "I won't let this, win." For the first time, she could feel something more than fear, something raw and powerful. A flicker of her former self, the girl she had been before the virus had found its way inside her. The girl who had once fought for something real, something meaningful. With every ounce of strength she could muster, Michigan stood up, her legs unsteady but determined. The room around her seemed to warp, the shadows closing in as though trying to drag her back into the dark. But she pushed forward, forcing herself to move. "Let me go," she whispered, her voice shaking but resolute. "Let me out. Lena's eyes narrowed, his smile turning cold. You don't understand. There is no out, Michigan. There is only change. But Michigan didn't listen. She didn't care. She had to escape. She had to fight. She wasn't going to let the virus, let him, win. Part 5, Breaking the Chains. The world around Michigan was a blur, her senses stretched thin as she tried to force her body to move. The room seemed to twist and warp, the shadows closing in on her like a living thing. Every step she took was heavy, as if the very air itself was pushing against her. But she fought against it, gritting her teeth and forcing her legs to carry her forward. Lena's voice, smooth and persuasive, followed her like an echo. You can't outrun this, Michigan. It's not just in you, it's in everyone. The world is changing, whether you accept it or not. But Michigan refused to listen. She had heard his words 1,000 times over, but they no longer held the same weight. The virus, the infection, wasn't just some external force. It was a manifestation of everything she had been running from. It was the darkness she had buried deep inside herself. And if she wanted to survive, she had to face it. Her feet stumbled slightly as she reached the far corner of the room, her vision spinning. The figures in the shadows, those hollow-eyed souls who had already given in, were watching her. She could feel their eyes on her back, their empty gazes like cold, crawling fingers on her skin. But there was one thing they didn't have, something she still clung to, even as the virus clawed at her from the inside. Hope. She had lost it once, years ago. Let it slip through her fingers in the fog of excess and numbness. But in this moment, as the weight of everything threatened to crush her, she felt a spark, a flicker of something that had been dormant for too long. She wasn't alone. A sound, a faint, distant hum, suddenly filled the room, breaking through the suffocating quiet. Michigan's heart stilled as she turned toward the source. It was as though the very walls of the place were responding to her will, vibrating with an energy that had not been there before. The hum grew louder, more distinct, until it became a voice. A voice she had not heard in what felt like an eternity. Michigan. It was Lena's voice, but this time, it was different. It was shaky, uncertain. You can't run from yourself. The words reverberated in her chest like a warning, a reflection of the virus that had taken root within her. But this time, something about the way it was spoken felt wrong. It wasn't the calm, hypnotic tone she had grown used to, it was tinged with desperation. She spun around, her eyes searching for Lena, but he was nowhere to be seen. The shadows were shifting, swirling as if alive, but there was no figure standing in them now. Instead, it was the virus, the very thing she had been fighting, that seemed to take form. It began as a vague shape, a mass of swirling darkness, but it soon coalesced into something more, something familiar. Her. For a moment, Michigan didn't recognize what she was seeing. But then the figure stepped forward, and the likeness became impossible to ignore. The woman before her looked exactly like Michigan, the same hair, the same eyes, the same face. But this version of herself was cold, hollow-eyed, her expression twisted into something that resembled an eerie smile. You are me, the figure said, its voice a distorted version of her own. And I am you. The virus is only a mirror. It shows you what you've become, what you've always been. Michigan took a step back, her breath hitching. No, this isn't me. This isn't who I am. But the figure, she, only laughed. The sound was hollow and empty, like the scraping of metal on stone. You've always known this was who you were. You've always been running from this, from the part of yourself that you refuse to see. The virus only speeds up the process. It doesn't change you. It only reveals what's been there all along. This is what I've become, Michigan thought. This is who I really am. The figure before her seemed to swell, its form growing larger and more menacing, a reflection of everything she feared about herself. The self-loathing, the addiction, the constant need for distraction. The part of her that had been so afraid of facing the truth that she had buried it under layers of indulgence and isolation. But she couldn't let this be her. Not anymore. No, Michigan whispered, her voice trembling but firm. I won't let you be me. The figure tilted its head, as if studying her with new interest. You can't fight what you are. The virus has already taken root inside you. It will change you, whether you resist or not. But Michigan wasn't listening anymore. She could feel the virus, yes. She could feel the darkness and the temptation to give in. But she could also feel something else, something stronger than the fear, something that refused to be consumed. She clenched her fists and shouted, I choose who I am. Not you. Not this. The room seemed to tremble as her words echoed, and for the first time since she had awoken here, she felt in control. The shadows around her began to recede, the figures in the darkness shrinking back, as though her defiance was a force they could not withstand. The figure, the virus, seemed to flicker for a moment, its form distorting. You can't escape it, Michigan. You'll become one of us. But Michigan wasn't listening. She wasn't running anymore. She had spent too much time running from herself, from the parts of her life she didn't want to face. But now, with everything at stake, she realized the only way out was through. She reached deep inside herself, past the virus, past the panic and fear. She found the fragments of who she was, the parts of her that had been buried, the parts that had once dreamed of something more. She clung to those pieces, nurturing them, giving them space to grow. This was her choice. With a fierce cry, she tore herself away from the vision of the twisted version of herself. The darkness seemed to pulse, recoiling, as though it could feel the force of her will. I am not you, she said, her voice ringing out, louder than before. I will not let you take me. The room seemed to shrink, the walls closing in on her, but Michigan held her ground. She could feel it now, the virus, the darkness, trying to envelop her, to drag her down. But she stood tall, her chest heaving with every breath, and she pushed back, forcing the shadows to retreat. And then, in a blinding flash, everything stopped. For the first time since she had entered this nightmare, the room was still. The shadows faded, and the oppressive weight on her chest lifted. The virus, whatever it was, seemed to dissolve into the air, leaving her breathless but free. The darkness was gone. The aftermath. Michigan stood there, panting, her heart pounding in her chest. Her hands shook as she looked around the now empty room. It was as if the virus had never been there at all. But she knew better. She knew the fight was far from over. This was only the beginning. The virus had been inside her, but she had fought it. She had chosen who she wanted to be. But there was something else, something deeper. She understood now. The virus wasn't just a force, it was a reflection of the world around her. The apathy, the fear, the distractions that kept people from confronting who they really were. It was the system itself, and it was bigger than her. Michigan wasn't out of the woods yet. She had taken the first step, but there were others, more like her, still trapped. The fight wasn't over. And she would keep fighting. Part 6, The World Awakens. The quiet that followed was almost deafening. Michigan stood alone in the room, her body still trembling, her mind reeling from the weight of everything she had just experienced. The shadows that had once seemed to threaten her existence were now gone, leaving only the hollow echo of her thoughts. She could still feel it, the virus. It wasn't completely gone, not really. It had left a scar, something deep within her that she couldn't quite explain. But for now, she was free. And that made her wonder, what would happen next? Her body ached, as though every muscle had been pushed to its breaking point. But her mind felt sharper now. Clearer. For the first time in what felt like forever, she wasn't clouded by the noise of addiction, the pull of excess. The desire to run, to numb the world away, was gone. At least, for the moment. But Michigan knew this feeling wouldn't last forever. She had seen too much to pretend otherwise. The virus is inside everyone now, Lena had said. And for a fleeting moment, she had almost believed him. But now, standing in the center of the room that had once felt like her prison, Michigan was struck by an unsettling realization: if the virus had infected her, if it had taken root inside her mind, then it must be spreading through the world in the same way. She wasn't the only one suffering. The outside world. With a forceful breath, Michigan turned away from the empty room and walked toward the door. She hesitated for only a moment, but the weight of what was waiting outside, the world, was too much to ignore. The door opened with a soft creak, revealing a long, dimly lit hallway. The air felt thick, as though the very walls were heavy with something unspoken, something oppressive. But as she stepped out, she noticed something strange. The hallway wasn't empty. There were others. Figures standing in the shadows, their faces hidden from view. For a moment, Michigan froze, fear flooding her chest. Were these more of the infected? Were they going to drag her back into the darkness? But then one of them stepped forward, and Michigan's heart skipped a beat. It was a woman. Tall, with wild, dark hair and a piercing gaze. Her eyes were wide, but there was a clarity in them that Michigan had not seen in the others who had succumbed to the virus. She stepped closer, her movements graceful yet purposeful. "Michigan," the woman said, her voice low and filled with an urgency that Michigan could not ignore. "We need to talk." Michigan took a step back. "Who are you? What do you want?" The woman's eyes softened. "I'm not here to hurt you. I'm here because I can help you. We've been waiting for someone like you." Michigan's heart pounded, but she didn't speak. The woman continued, her voice more steady now, as though she had rehearsed these words 1,000 times. "You've seen it, haven't you?" she asked. "The virus, what it's doing. It's not just in your head. It's everywhere. It's turning people into something other." Michigan nodded slowly. She had seen it, had felt it herself. The virus wasn't just a disease, it was something much larger, something that permeated everything. It was in the world, in the systems that held people captive in their own apathy. "I'm part of a group," the woman continued. "We've been fighting it, trying to understand it, to stop it. But the virus is spreading faster than we can contain it. We need more like you, people who are still fighting, who haven't completely given in." Michigan frowned. "Fighting? How do you fight something like this? It's inside all of us." The woman's eyes flickered with something like hope. "Exactly. That's why you're important. You've seen the virus for what it is. Most people don't. They're too busy hiding from it, too busy trying to numb themselves, just like you were. But you saw it. You felt it." Michigan swallowed hard. "But I'm not special. I'm not anything. I barely fought. I just—" "You did fight, Michigan," the woman interrupted gently. "You chose to confront it, to reject it. That's more than most can say." Michigan looked down at her hands, the same hands that had been shaking just moments ago. She didn't feel special. She didn't feel powerful. But there was a flicker inside her, something that said she had made the right choice. "Why me?" she asked quietly. "Why do you think I can help you?" The woman took a step closer, her voice lowering as though she were sharing a secret. "Because you're not the first to feel the virus take root. But you're the first to have fought back. We're still figuring out how to stop it, how to take control again. But we can't do it alone. We need people who see it." Michigan felt a shiver run through her. "And what exactly do you want me to do?" "We need to expose it. We need to show the world what's happening before it's too late. We have to wake people up. They need to see it, understand it." Her words hit Michigan like a bolt of lightning. Wake people up. It wasn't just about fighting the virus. It was about revealing the truth to the rest of the world, the truth that had been hidden behind the veil of distractions, of false security. The virus wasn't just a disease. It was the system, the cycle of numbness and denial that had kept the world from seeing the truth. The woman met Michigan's gaze, her eyes filled with a fierce determination. We need to expose what's happening, Michigan. Before it's too late. Before everyone's like them, she said, nodding toward the empty figures in the shadows. Before the whole world becomes infected. Michigan stared at the woman, feeling the weight of her words sink in. This was bigger than her. Bigger than anything she had ever imagined. The choice. Michigan stood still for a long moment, the silence pressing in on her like a heavy fog. Everything was happening so fast. She had barely processed what was happening to her, and now she was being asked to join some underground fight against something she didn't fully understand. But deep down, in the pit of her stomach, Michigan knew this was where it had always led. She had tried to escape it, to bury it under the noise of her life, the thrill of gambling, the rush of buying things she didn't need. But the truth was that she had never been able to escape the emptiness, the nagging feeling that something was wrong with the world. This virus, it was a reflection of everything she had been running from, and if she didn't do something about it, then nothing would change. The world would continue to spiral, and she would be just another person caught in its web. She thought of Lena, of the twisted version of herself she had seen in the shadows. I will not be like that, she told herself. I will not give in. Michigan took a deep breath, straightening her back. She met the woman's eyes again. I'll help, she said, her voice steady. What do we need to do? The woman smiled, a flicker of relief crossing her face. Good. We need to find others. There are more like you, more who are still fighting. We need to build a movement, to show the world the truth before it's too late. Michigan nodded. The fight was just beginning. Part 7, The Resistance Grows. The woman, whose name was Ava, led Michigan through a series of dim hallways, each one more labyrinthine than the last. The concrete walls, once cold and impersonal, now seemed to pulse with a strange energy, a tension that Michigan could feel deep in her bones. The virus, the thing that had almost consumed her, was no longer just a personal battle. It was everywhere, in the air, in the walls, in the very structures of society. Ava's urgency was palpable, and Michigan couldn't ignore the gnawing sense of responsibility that had settled within her. They stopped in front of an unmarked door at the end of the hallway. It was inconspicuous, but Michigan could sense that something important lay behind it. Ava hesitated for just a moment, then pushed the door open. The room inside was smaller than she had expected, its only source of light coming from a series of flickering monitors lining the walls. The air was thick with the scent of stale coffee and old paper, the kind of place where people worked long hours, pushing against a world that didn't seem to care. Several people sat around a large, rectangular table in the center of the room. Some were hunched over laptops, others were scribbling notes on large whiteboards that were covered in symbols, equations, and strange diagrams Michigan didn't quite understand. Their faces were intense, focused, but there was something else there, too. A quiet resolve. They were working on something important. A man in his 30s, with short-cropped hair and a tired, almost haunted look in his eyes, looked up as Ava entered. His gaze shifted to Michigan, and a flicker of recognition passed over his face. You brought her, he said, his voice hoarse but strong. Is she ready? Ava nodded. She's already proven she can fight it. She saw the virus for what it really is. The man stood up and approached Michigan, extending his hand. I'm Noah. I'm one of the leaders here. We've been tracking the virus, trying to understand how it spreads, how it works. But we need people like you, people who've already felt it, who can help us break it down. Michigan hesitated for a moment before taking his hand. I don't know how much help I can be, she said honestly. I only know what happened to me. I don't understand the science behind it. Noah smiled faintly, the kind of smile that came from a place of shared understanding. You don't need to understand the science, not yet. We're working on that. But what you have, what you've already done, is something we need. You saw the truth. You resisted. That's the most important thing. Ava stepped forward, her expression serious. We're all here because we've seen what the virus does. But more than that, we've seen what the world is becoming. People are being consumed by it, Michigan. They're giving in, letting themselves become part of the system. This virus, it's not just a disease. It's a reflection of the way the world works, the way we've been living for so long. People are so focused on distractions, on instant gratification, on numbness, that they don't even realize they're losing themselves. Michigan nodded, her mind racing as she processed Ava's words. She'd felt it, too. The emptiness that the virus had amplified inside her wasn't just about personal addiction, it was about a world that had taught people to chase hollow desires, to run from their problems instead of facing them. We're trying to expose it, Ava continued. We've gathered evidence, made connections. But we need more. We need the world to wake up. How do we do that? Michigan asked, her voice quiet but determined. How do we make people see it? Noah looked at her, his eyes sharp. That's what we're working on. The virus isn't just something biological. It's a mental and social contagion, too. It feeds on isolation, on division. It thrives on making people feel insignificant, like they don't matter. But when people come together, when they see the truth, that's when the virus starts to lose its grip.